On today's episode of the Blue White Illustrated Recruiting Podcast, Sean Fitz and myself take a closer look at two recent 2023 offers that just went out over the last couple of days. We'll also recap who all made it for the Ohio State game this past weekend. It was a deeper list than what we thought it would be, so we'll get into some of the big names that fans need to know. Let's get it started. All right, Fitz. Big recruiting weekend. I have my voice back, so hopefully I don't sound like I did last week. I was listening back to that. Did not sound very well, but big recruiting weekend. We'll start with. We'll get into Ohio State and some of the guys that I think fans need to know. But two 2023 offers went out the last couple of days that you and I are still digging on a little bit, but. Two important positions, defensive tackle, junior college offer. I think it's Quientrail Travis. Sorry if I got that wrong. Out of Iowa Western, originally from Minneapolis. And then a running back, which is another important position, obviously. Kedrick Riscano, I believe it is, out of Texas. Kedrick has a 4-star rating in both the On3 ranking and the On3 consensus. Sean, I'll throw it to you. Just anything you've been able to dig on this so far. I'm still working on these guys as well. Haven't spoken with the kids yet. Have been able to catch up with a few people at Penn State, but I'll throw it to you first.
Yeah, I mean, running back has become one of the top priorities for the staff. Obviously, you've got London Montgomery committed, but with his knee injury, recent surgery, you can't rely on that. And then the numbers have plummeted with the guys on campus, and obviously with the two freshmen taking over, it's not a surprise. And we've talked about Kevon Lee on other podcasts before, and we'll see where he stands coming out of the season. But you got to add another guy. I think they're going to go portal in that position because you can find a guy who's suffice to call him a depth guy, a guy that can come in, has got experience. Is not going to come in and take the starting job from Singleton or Katron Allen in last weekend's case. But you can find a depth guy that can come in and help you out and get that room sort of in order. But you still want to find a developmental guy. Obviously, you got Montgomery, but they've been out and about. And the latest one, Kedrick Riscano, decommitted from Michigan State, I believe last week. Penn State got on that right away. A bunch of schools are on that. I think Ole Miss probably is the logical choice. You look at the On3 RPM, and Ole Miss is leading on that pretty heavily. But I think it's indicative of what they're kind of looking for right now. Not that there's a coaching change at Michigan State, but there's going to be a lot of interest in that coaching carousel this last 6 or 7 weeks before signing day. It's going to be very interesting because I think they're going to lean on that a lot. There's a lot of guys that they've been following for a long time, and maybe just they're uncommitted, but don't move the needle as much as some of the other guys. They offered Dante Dardell, the Oregon commit, Auburn commit. Jeremiah Cobb has been in there. John Randall Jr. is uncommitted. He's the guy that they followed out of Kansas. Christopher Johnson is the guy that we've kind of focused in on out of Florida. One of those guys that could probably play running back, play receiver, just kind of do a little bit of everything. James Franklin and Jaywan Sider went down there during the bye week. He's the guy that I'm kind of focused in on because we've heard that a visit could be in the works. Kind of expected it to be one of the last 2 weekends, but it didn't come about with scheduling and things like that. But certainly names to watch in November. But I think that's kind of the approach right now in 2023. You've got these guys that you've been recruiting for a while, and are you completely sold on whether or not they can get it done for you? I know they're looking at receiver, offensive line, defensive line, running back as well. Probably the 4 main priorities, but they keep scouting. Edge is such a huge target here. I mean, it's kind of that situation we talked about with Joseph Mupoy. Is you feel good about where you stand with him? Do you think that's the ceiling of what you can get at this point? And I think that they're content sitting back, watching the coaching carousel turn. Of course, Auburn opened up yesterday. So I think there's going to be options. It's just going to take a little bit of patience. I know that's not the easiest thing to do following recruiting, but I think it's going to take a little patience because new names in the 2023 class will eventually pop up.
Yeah, you mentioned edge is important, and it is, but it also feels to me that interior defensive line is becoming more important over the last couple of weeks. Of course, they looked at Rodney Laura. Now you have this Quientrail Travis offer, junior college guy, someone that they think could come in and obviously I would think make an impact right away, but we need to still learn a little bit more about this. But that he has got a Nebraska offer. Nebraska seems like the team there for the most part, but we're trying to get a better feel for whether he has interest in visiting or not. One thing I'll mention with Wisconsin, you said Ole Miss is probably the favorite there. I've heard the same thing as far as they seem to be the firm favorite. Quinton Judkins, who previously Penn State recruited.
Penn State scouted the hell out of 22 running backs, man.
Yeah.
Judkins is great. Amari Hampton's good. George Pettaway, very good at North Carolina. Allen and Singleton at Penn State. Damari Alston at Auburn. Just the top 8 guys on their board in 2022 were all they're all doing it right now. And that's right. Pretty cool. And I mean, you got 2 that you really, really like. And it's just, you look around the country and say, well, these guys could have made a difference here as well. So, but it's good for scouting. It's good to know that the guys that you settled on and the guys that you've gone with are legitimate players. So, running back is different than scouting certain other positions like on the lines, but that's a really good sign. I kind of liken it to the way that Penn State has recruited the portal, and you look at the guys that they've actually gone after are actual difference makers, and the guys that they maybe would have made sense with that came from big schools that they've recruited before, and they just decided to go in another direction. Some of those guys really haven't done anything at all.
Right. And like I said, I kind of said the wrong thing earlier. I said, Quientrail come in and make an impact right away. At least just get in the mix. Obviously, I don't think that a junior college guy could come in right away and be an impact maker. But they're trying to just find guys who are closer to contributing than
there's levels to it. It's like portals at one side that you're looking for a guy to come in right away. JUCO, you want a guy that can come in right away, but if you don't, you've got he's a 3 for 2. You've got an extra year to develop him. Those guys, they're not in world-class weight programs. We've seen it with the offensive linemen that have come in from Lackawanna. So you've got different layers there and different expectations for when they can actually make it. And I think that goes back to what we were talking about running back, is you can find a guy that you can put in there right away and can play some snaps for you. But is this second running back going to change the outlook of your running back room in 2023? I'm not sure about that.
No, I would agree. So with Wisconsin, though, he's brought up a few times he's been impressed with Judkins, and he recently talked to one of our coworkers the other day about the Penn State offer as well. He mentioned that the freshman and what that's happening, what he's seeing there, that excites him is an opportunity to come in and play right away. But he did mention Penn State's like one of the schools that's really up there. They're doing something. He's speaking very positive about Penn State, which I know not everybody on our board is doing right now, which is funny to me because usually it's sometimes the opposite. I think sometimes with when we're talking about top level guys. So it's intriguing to me that he has interest in Penn State. Let's see if he's able to make it on campus for a visit. Nothing like that's been set right now. I would still focus on Chris Johnson as the top guy. I mean, we've known for a while now that's Snyder's top guy, or at least that's what's been suggested to us. But let's see how this offer impacts some things moving forward. But the kid seems to have interest in Penn State. He's got interest in playing right away. Obviously, Penn State's showing that with Katron and Nick Singleton right now. So let's see where it goes. Are there any other 2023 guys? Oh, Edwin Joseph got an offer from Oklahoma the other day. Any thoughts on that? I mean, we've thought that Joseph had a lot of interest in Penn State, and now it's just kind of gone quiet for the last couple of weeks. I'm not sure what's going on there.
I mean, I do think he has interest. It's one of those things where we talked about this a little bit a couple minutes ago, is do you feel like he's going to be the guy that pushes you over the top, or is that scholarship better served elsewhere? I do think Penn State was in a really, really good spot, and they're still talking to him, still recruiting him, but there's different levels to that. I think what Penn State has been looking for and talking to people on campus is they need some legitimate speed. Is Edwin Joseph that guy? Incredibly smooth, really, really good player. But is he the guy that's going to take the top off the defense? Now, you've got Carmelo Taylor, who you hope can be that guy. But at the same time, you look at what Penn State is lacking at receiver right now, and it's kind of obvious they'd like to make that room a little bit faster.
I was just counting our Ohio State visitor list. So let's transition to that, because I was trying to get a better count on how many guys made it this weekend, uncommitted scholarship guys, because I thought it was a better list than what I was expecting going into it, just because of what happened last weekend, right? You had however many, what was it, 50 plus uncommitted scholarship guys make it. It's rare to see guys do back-to-back visits, but it also speaks to the region and how deep it is in 2024. And I did a story on that a couple months ago, and this is setting up to be one of the deepest over the last decade or so when it comes to four-star talent. So it's a little over 24 guys who made it this past weekend. When you look at uncommitted scholarship guys, again, 2024 and 2025. Of course, I think the top guy that most fans want to talk about is Quinton Martin, athlete, running back, defensive back, linebacker, whatever you want to call him, out of Bell Vernon. Sean, just kind of what are you kind of hearing there with Quinton Martin? Obviously, I've done some stories on him in recent weeks. I feel very good that Penn State's going to be in the mix there. I also think that they're going to have a serious competitor from a team Penn State fans are very familiar with.
Yeah, I do think it's Penn State and Ohio State eventually. This one, to me, is going to go for a while. You look at the way that he's handled his recruitment so far, and there's I think there's a lot of moving parts in that one, but Penn State's always been a part of it. I think Penn State in a good position early, but Ohio State, of course, is lurking. I do expect bigger offers to come in, and you say bigger, and you think top 5. Alabama might offer. I mean, Alabama offers a lot more kids than you probably think, and I think those type of schools will come, but I think Penn State and Ohio State will bubble back up to the top of that list, and eventually that'll be the battle for them. Be interesting to see how Ohio State handles him in terms of position. Penn State has told him running back, and he's a very good running back. And as you've mentioned, the athlete tag with receiver, safety, linebacker, all that kind of stuff. I mean, this is a really good football player. But these are two schools that have recruited running back at a top level. So we'll see where that. See where that all ends up. But I do think Penn State impressed him. You saw on the field the other day that they've made it. I mean, he's an outward priority. I mean, everybody on that staff knew where he was pretty much at all times, out on the field, shaking hands, going to see the recruiting staffers. He really likes the staff, really likes Snyder, really likes Terry Smith and James Franklin. So they've made him a priority, and he has returned the interest in kind. It's just a matter of this. I think this is going to be in one for the long run.
One other thing that really, this is non-Quinton Martin related, but one other thing about this past weekend's list that grabbed my attention was Penn State hosted 4 guys from modern day. I've never seen that in my life, where one of the elite programs in California sends out some guys to check out Penn State. Of course, they're playing Ohio State. Yes, Ohio State has gotten some guys out of there in the past, and I think that was part of the reason they got out here, because it was such a big game. But it's a really positive sign when guys like Brandon Baker, one of the top offensive tackles in the whole country, he's rated number 76 in the country, is coming out for a game. You had Jordan Davison, who's a 2025 running back. I'll hit on him a little bit before we leave, before we end this, because I got a good story there. Jack Riesler's a 3-star guy out of modern day, wide receiver 2024. And then Elijah Brown, 4-star quarterback prospect who Penn State offered this weekend. I think they offered Riesler as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
I believe yeah, so they offered, all 4 of those guys have a Penn State offer now. But just go ahead.
If you're going to make that trip, they're going to offer you.
Right.
Especially from that school, you're coming out. Whether they push for all those guys, it's hard to say. But if you're going to make the effort to get out here, you're probably going to get an offer. And that's, it's a great check mark to put beside your name. We'll say that.
Right. But so in addition to that, I mean, this list was deep, man. Assad Brown, cornerback, Oscar Smith, and a player who has been here, I think once before. I think maybe it was his second visit. He's another 4-star guy we haven't talked about a ton. Just doesn't do a lot of interviews and whatnot, but he's a very talented player to get up on campus. Brian Robinson was back on campus again. Right now he's ranked 4th player overall in Ohio, 119 in the nation. Dylan Jones and Elijah Moore from a Good Counsel made it on campus. Both are 4-star guys. Both left with offers this past weekend. Who else am I missing here? Ife Abidjou, I believe it is. Sorry, Ife, if I screwed it up. St. Francis. Yeah, I always screw his name up. One of these days I'll get it right. Another 4-star guy out of St. Francis. Who am I missing? Keelan Adams. I haven't even mentioned him yet. Ranked number 120 in the nation. I think one of Penn State's top 3, 4, 5 wide receivers, the 2024 class. Michael Van Buren, I haven't mentioned yet. Of course, another 4-star quarterback, and Vabu Tori as well. One of the top 100 prospects according to On3, safety out of Irvington, New Jersey. So I just think it's really impressive when you look at the amount of talent that was here last weekend, and then the amount of talent to make it on campus for a noon game. I'll be honest, we were putting that list together, and I thought there was a very good chance that, not half of it, but maybe like 20, 30% of it doesn't show, with it being a noon kick, day after a game. Traffic was going to be terrible. They a lot of these guys knew that going into it. and yet they all still made it to campus. I think it's a really positive sign for the direction Penn State's going right now.
Yeah, I think so. It was really funny because we were texting and you were sort of giddy whenever you confirm these guys and the fact that they had a flight. Like it's not always the case.
Yes.
Whenever they confirm that they're coming to Penn State, you're like, what was the linebacker? Shakir Collins.
Yeah.
We're coming and we have a flight, and that changes everything, especially coming to State College, Pennsylvania. That's you're not booking last minute flights from California for recruiting visits. So yeah, getting those guys out there, if anything comes from it, I mean, we will very much wait and see on that. I did find a little bit of a precedent here. Back in March of 2019, Penn State hosted a big group from St. John Bosco and Bellflower, which included Bo Collins, who's at Clemson, Kobe Pepe, Court Williams, went to Ohio State, and Ernest Green, the big offensive lineman. He was just a freshman at that point, ended up at Georgia. So they have had groups come in like this come in the past. It hasn't always worked out. The one that I think did work out was the group from Vegas a couple of years ago, and you got Micah Bowens out of it. So
who was the safety from Bosco that went to Ohio State? I forget about him. Yes, yeah, they were in the mix with him a good bit, but yeah, I did forget about that group. I mean, I remember Gorman bringing guys out here, and we've seen some Bay Area guys, but just not a ton of a modern day over the years. So interesting list there. I want to get into two guys real quick, and then I'll throw it back to you. Any other guys you want to talk about? Brian Robinson, I mentioned him, of course, 4-star defensive end out of Austintown Fitch. Very similar to Deny Dennis Sutton in a lot of ways. He was explaining that to me this weekend, that Penn State's actually been using Deny to kind of show him how he would be used. I don't know if he's quite on Deny's level, but certainly, I mean, he ranks 120th in the nation. He's a very good looking prospect. Interesting thing with Brian, back-to-back visits really stands out to me a lot. He also told me he stuck around after the game, which you don't always see. Had a good talk with Drew Aller, had a good talk with Sean Clifford, had a good talk with Parker Washington. That's just not always something we see from guys after games, sticking around and chatting with players. So grab my attention there. I definitely think Penn State's going to be one of those top schools. The hard thing that, we always talk about reading visits. Well, this guy's taken 33 visits so far, 19 different schools. So a little more difficult to read it when you have those kind of depth there. But Michigan, Ohio State hasn't offered him yet, which is what's very intriguing to me. I kind of need to learn a little bit more about that one. But I certainly think Penn State's going to be in the mix here. He's headed to Notre Dame this weekend, been to Kentucky a couple times, Michigan a couple times, a couple schools to keep an eye on. He says he's going to Clemson as well, I think in 2 weeks from now. So something to keep an eye on there. And then also, let me see, who else I wanted to talk about Jordan Davison as well, the 2025 running back from Mater Dei. Spoke with him last night. I didn't realize this. Journey Brown is a massive reason why he has interest in Penn State. I guess Journey Brown was working out in California through the summertime, and that's what kickstarted all of this here. So he has brought up a good relationship with Jaywan Sider now. That's kind of what kickstarted all of this. And look, he's going to Georgia, Tennessee this weekend. He's been to pretty much all the top SEC schools. And been to Texas, USC, you name it, those elite schools are out there. So it's not going to be easy to get Davison, but just having those ties with Journey, he says he communicates with Journey still somewhat frequently, and that's really kickstarted his relationship with Sider, which he spoke very glowingly about. I think there's just something to keep an eye on here moving forward. But Sean, anybody else you kind of want to hit on here quick?
Just real quick with Davison, very much in the wait and see category all the way in California. It's just, I believe their 7-on-7 financier has some East Coast ties, so they're going to all the good games. And it's a really, really cool opportunity for those guys. It's just, he's going to be well regarded in that 2025 class. Just looking down here, Vebu Torre made it. This is a guy that, it's been, his schedule's kind of been on and off, but he was able to make it this weekend. He's a top 100 safety from New Jersey. Elijah Moore, there's a couple of Elijahs that got offers this weekend. Elijah Brown, the quarterback from Mater Dei, but Elijah Moore, big bodied receiver from Good Counsel, a guy that, kind of different than what Penn State presents on the roster right now. I know they got Malik Mega, who's their big guy right now, but Elijah Moore, really, really good high school player. I don't think he's going to grow into a tight end either. He was excellent at the team camp that you and I watched this summer. Just goes up, gets the ball. They offered him. They offered his teammate Dylan Jones, who's a running back athlete, type guy who can really play. I believe that's a leading rusher at good counsel, leading receiver at good counsel. Moving down, there's a bunch of guys. Mikey Crawford's interesting. He's an athlete from Western Beaver County in Industry, PA, which is not a guy that we had in the database. It's not a school that I'm familiar with covering, but he's got a Michigan State offer early. I think that's interesting there. Moving to 2025, I'll keep going back to Deshaun Burnett, second weekend in a row on campus. This is a guy that makes a lot of sense for Penn State. Not ready to put any picks in or anything like that, but has been to he camped, he earned an offer, went to the Lash Bash, went to the Whiteout, went to the Penn State-Ohio State game. I didn't check my records to see if he was at the spring game, but that's kind of the trifecta of those visits. So a lot of things pointing his way. I think he's a good fit for Penn State as well. Tyke Hayes from Aliquippa. It's got some connections to Terry Smith from a family perspective. He was back on campus as well. And then Fahim Delane, I'm a really big fan of his. He was also awesome at team camp over the summer. He's probably a safety, but he's got corner skills. He's a big guy. He's 6'1 plus, I think 195 or so. So is he a potential Sam, something like that? I just know he can play. And I think that Penn State has him early in 2025 as one of their early top targets.
Yeah. Another guy I want to keep an eye on eventually is Adam Shovlin, too, 2025 kid from Pennsylvania, up at St. Thomas More now, Boston College, Virginia Tech, Duke, Rutgers, a handful of schools that have offered. Penn State hasn't done that yet. He did camp this year. I think obviously they want to just keep seeing how he progresses there, but he is a Pennsylvania native. Tyke Hayes, we didn't have Hayes on the list. Did you have Hayes? I don't think we had Hayes.
Kids on the list.
So that
up, which
that was a
times, but that's
but that was a. Yeah, I think he's just going to be somebody we're going to be talking about quite a bit in 2025. I'm trying to think who else have we talked about.
LeVar Arrington II. I don't know if you've heard of his dad. I don't know how much of a prospect he is, but he's got good genes. We'll give him that. Came in from California. There was a bunch of kids in from California this weekend, which obviously bolsters the visitor list. But LeVar, of course, announced to the crowd in the College Football Hall of Fame, and that's cool. His other son, Keno, is at Lackawanna right now and getting some interest from Penn State, Virginia Tech, and Old Dominion. Ricky and Brent both showing interest there. Not sure that he's gotten the offers, but there's some good genes there.
Mm-hmm. And I'm working to get an interview with Keelan Adams. He's a very important wide receiver for Penn State. I'm hoping that I can get more on that here in the coming days. Keelan doesn't do many interviews. We've been able to text a little bit here and there, but I'm trying to get a formal interview to really kind of get him to open up and learn some things there. So keep an eye on him, 2024. And shout out to my 717 kids, Lex Cyrus, Jared Porter, Central Dauphin East, and Susquehanna Township. I'm not sure if they're going to be Penn State guys in the end, but they're really good players that I think we'll be talking about more and more. They're both 2025 prospects.
Come on, those are our 717 kids. We're both mid-Penn guys, so we play at different levels of the mid-Penn. But
I moved back. You're still 814 now, but
my phone number is staying as long as it possibly can. So
that's true.
That's 717. Yeah.
All right. I didn't ask you guys to like the video. T. Frank, I'm sorry, but I will now. Please give it a like. Please give our YouTube page a like on Apple as well. Give us a review. Stop being mean to Nate on Apple as well. Nate, I just was listening to the podcast last night. Nate made me laugh on your guys' Thursday podcast. But now appreciate a review. Please give us 5 stars. We need that to grow. T. Frank's been crushing it on that end, and we really appreciate it. But Sean, I don't have a lot more to add this week. It was a good visitor list. They're still kind of chipping away at 2023 guys. I feel like at some point here, it's all just going to take off, and it's going to be a hectic couple of weeks. But I still feel like we're waiting for more coaching carousel dominoes to fall until we see that happening. Yeah,
I was preaching patience. I think there's guys that you could go out and grab right now, and it's probably not the guys that would put you over the top to get where you want to be. So I think patience is certainly key. November, we see guys pop up on visits all the time. I think that's kind of what we're expecting heading into signing day.
Yep. Yeah. End of November there, especially we're looking at Keyshawn Blackstock. He'll probably maybe be more of a December visit, but certainly a guy to keep an eye on. But all right, guys. Give the video a like, give the YouTube page a like, Apple 5 stars, all that stuff. We really appreciate it. But for this week's podcast, thanks, Sean, for being on. I'm Ryan Snyder. Appreciate you guys watching.